removing the female genitalia. There are 4 main categories of female genital mutilation. To the right, and I chose the images where that were the less, the less exposing, so I hope that you appreciate that. First type is the clitoridectomy, which is the partial or complete removal of the female clitoris. The second is excision, which is the partial or complete removal of the female clitoris and labia majora. The third is infibulation, which is the sewing together of the 2 major vaginal lips, whereas only there is a small hole for urinating and menstruating. The fourth they consider other, which is more so like a miscellaneous category for other types of mutilations that do not fall under either of these 3 main categories. So, with the initial heinous experience that a girl has to go through of FGM, which is short for female genital mutilation, there are many physical effects and repercussions, both short and long-term. Some short-term repercussions are that of bacterial infections. We have to understand that these procedures, such as, are not done in sterile environments and do not use sanitized utensils, in which case the girl becomes incredibly susceptible to bacterial infections, and even in severe cases could retrieve fever, sepsis, abscess, which is a collection of pus, and when these aren't treated, that they could become fatal. Likewise, there are long-term effects, some of which are short-term effects that haven't been treated, and others such as extremely painful sexual intercourse that even may lead to the woman not be capable of having sexual intercourse, the potential of infertility based off of any cysts or bumps that grow out or in of her vagina. It also slows down urine flow and the menstruation cycle, leaving the woman, again, very susceptible to bacterial infections that could go to her heart and then kill her. And lastly, which is a big scare, is being susceptible to HIV and hepatitis, in which case does not only threaten her own life, but threatens that of her partner or potentially the child that she may be able to bear or not. I have some pictures down here, but the one that I wanted to point out was this metal picture on the bottom. There are different utensils that each culture or certain groups use. That is one that is used, as you could tell. That is not a surgical utensil. That is not something you see in hospitals. That is what's cutting off these female genitalia. So you might ask yourself, well, this sounds heinous, this is terrible, why and how and where would anybody ever do this? So, I would like to reiterate that, again, today, there's about 120 million women who have undergone female genital mutilation. It is concentrated densely in Africa and East Asia, but in more recent times, it has been seen to have undergone in countries such as Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and Canada. So this is alive, this is happening, and it's happening now. So you might ask yourself, well, why? Like, how could women ever do this? How would their families ever do this? How could a mother be holding her child down to having this done? For these cultures and religions, it's a sense of community. It's a sense of this woman being clean. It's a sense of that the sensuality that comes from sexual pleasure is left solely for the man himself. We, as Westerners and people who don't necessarily practice this, may not understand, but that is the philosophy into which they come from with that. I've also had a map just to kind of point out that this is more of the area of which it's densely populated, and I also have a depiction of Africa alone showing the different percentages of where it is majorly practiced in Africa. So, a lot of what people don't discern is that along with the physical repercussions of female genital mutilation comes a lot of psychological repercussions as well. And in which case it is found that many women have undergone what they consider FGM PTSD, female genital mutilation post-traumatic syndrome. These women are experiencing hallucinations, deprivation of sleep, delayed healing, where psychologically and physically they're not being able to properly function psychologically. And in which case there was a study conducted at the University of Friedberg in Germany in the Department of Psychology, where there was 79 mutilated girls who were studied upon with a control group of 30 non-mutilated girls, and what they had done was ask them a series of psychological tests that evaluated for depression, anxiety disorders, and post-traumatic syndrome, and in which case the results aren't as surprising. The results had indicated that 44% of the mutilated girls had shown signs of post-traumatic syndrome as opposed to the 7% of non-mutilated girls. There's 33% of the girls that showed signs of severe depression disorders, and also 45% of the mutilated girls showed severe anxiety disorders as opposed to the 6% that were non-mutilated. The results are unequivocal and I believe speak for themselves. Here are some little quotes that I've also included that women who have undergone female genital mutilation have said that I think unequivocally depicts what I'm trying to say. They felt so powerless. She gorged out my clitoris as I almost fainted. Mama tied a blindfold over my eyes. So, to date, female genital mutilation has been recognized as a federal crime in the United States, whereas practitioners are sentenced up to only 5 years in jail with having to only pay a small fine. Likewise, globally, there are certain instances that the UN has taken for Congress to, implement and advocating against female genital mutilation. I had asked you guys on the questionnaire of what you guys might suggest for implementing or exposing female genital mutilation, and in which case 90% of you had said to implement that in our core curriculum in schools and educational facilities, and also be able to implement through the internet female genital mutilation advocate websites. So I suggest that one way that we could be going about exposing this, especially in our educational systems, is implementing a female genital mutilation curriculum in our humanities and our biology classes, both discussing what female genital mutilation affects us culturally and physiologically. Therefore, my long-term goal that I would like to implement is setting a bill or a law that eventually, with the long-term practice, that we would be able to convict all practitioners in the United States with aggravated assault where they're only able to go to jail for a minimum of 25 years and not be able to get out with parole. So, in that case, with your now understanding of female genital mutilation, the unfortunate psychological and physical repercussions, and how we